In this series, we join archaeologists, divers, historians, and conservators as they work on one of the most intriguing shipwrecks of all time, while facing one of the toughest challenges of their careers, recovering all that remains of Blackbeard's Queen Anne's Revenge.
Blackbeard took off with anything that he valued.
To succeed, they'll have to battle the site's dynamic and dangerous marine environment,
You end up bashing into things.
ever-changing weather conditions, and a fast-ticking clock.
It's Mother Nature that's going to have her way.
It's a high-stakes balancing act to ensure the crew's safety and recover the ship's priceless artifacts in one piece.
Safety of everybody involved is paramount.
Blackbeard and the Queen Anne's Revenge, a 7-part educational web series. With recovery operations shut down due to unsafe storm conditions, conservators are hard at work in the QAR Conservation Lab in Greenville, North Carolina. This is where the meticulous, time-consuming, and highly specialized work of interpreting and conserving recovered cannon and other artifacts takes place.
All the artifacts that are recovered from the shipwreck come up here to be treated, and then eventually they go from here back to the museum in Beaufort to be on display and available for the public to see. We started investigating it in 1996. It was found by a group called Intersalve. We've been working from the south end of the site, working forward. So this is the coastline. This is the bow of the ship. This is the stern end, the back end of the ship. This is an artist's impression of what the ship might have looked like about the time it sank. It's a very big ship, 300 tons, about 100 feet long, 20 to 30 feet wide, with a 12-foot draft, 3 masts, and then miles and miles of rope and sails. The biggest items we have found so far on the site are cannon. Other big things on the site are anchors. We found 4 on the main site. This area of hull timbers was recovered from the site in 2000. And then this thing here is another big piece of wood, which is the stern post from the ship, and that was recovered in 2007 and is still here at the Conservation Lab in treatment. And we'll see what we've got when we go out to the warehouse.
The stern post and the stem post are the 2 rising verticals in a wooden ship that tie the entire vessel together, and they fade into the keel, which literally is the backbone of the ship. This is one of the most diagnostic pieces that you can find on a shipwreck, and we were very lucky to be able to bring this much of the stern assembly up. This piece offers us several clues as to the ship's size, and also because of the measurement system used to produce these draft markings, which are about 12 3/4 of an inch apart. That's indicative of the French foot from the early 18th century, which, being French, was slightly larger than the English foot. It's the cross-channel rivalry. So that offers us some substantiation that this was indeed La Concorde, which was built in Nantes, France, before she began her career, which culminated with the capture and her being turned into Queen Anne's Revenge.
So in this tank we have a big cannon with lots of things stuck to it, and if you can see, quite fun, there's this object here and this object here. These are pewter plates that have got stuck to the outside of the gun as the concretion has formed and spread. There's also a big piece of wood underneath this gun and another big pewter dish, which is on the underside. This again is in the state it was in exactly as it was brought up from site. The next step for these is to clean off the concretion and find the gun that's inside, and to expose any artifacts that are stuck to it. But we can't just knock all the concretion off. We have to go carefully. We have to literally excavate the concretions so that we don't damage any objects that are on the outside.
This is one of the anchors that was found on Queen Anne's Revenge. Anchor design has changed appreciably over the years, but this is very, very indicative of an early 18th century anchor. It's very common at this time period to carry multiple anchors, primarily because you tend to lose them a lot. You had smaller anchors, but the one that you were going to rely on would have been the biggest and the heaviest.
In this tank we have the concretion that came up yesterday. We all saw it come off the bottom with a lift balloon and then the help of the winch from the boat to the dockside tank, and then from the dockside tank to the van, and to the van to here at our Greenville warehouse lab. Before we even start to process this kind of thing, it will be x-rayed so we can tell what kind of objects are within the concretion and how best to remove them and separate them from each other.
We have one of these concretions from the shipwreck. We brought it into our x-ray room. They're going to take an x-ray and try and see what's inside. We never know what we will find, and sometimes we think we're absolutely sure, and then there's always a surprise inside as well. So this is the moment of truth here. What have we got? This looks really interesting. Now, we thought there might be something heavy inside because the concretion was so heavy, and in fact we have actually got cannonballs which are really quite massive. So here's one cannonball, here's another one. This is really interesting. This is a thing called a bar shot, which is like two cannonballs joined together by a solid bar, and these were put inside the bore of a cannon, and when it fired they would come out spinning, and then they would take out rigging and masts, and they were really dangerous, nasty things. So here we can see a finished cannonball. It's about the same size as this one. This is what we call a 6-pounder. It came from one of the big guns on the ship, the ones that are 8 foot long, 2,000 pounds in weight. This would have been fired at. It's really heavy. I can't really pick it up with one hand. I need two. This concretion is really interesting. It's got, it looks fairly straightforward to break it apart. When we come to clean it, we've very clearly got 3 cannonballs, 1 bar shot, and then a fragile drinking glass. In terms of understanding what's in it, that seems fairly straightforward. To actually clean it will be a little bit more complicated.
We choose the objects after we x-ray them. We choose the ones that have very diagnostic artifacts in them that would help the archaeologist to learn a little bit more about that shipwreck. So we tend to go with those first, and this is one of them. This object that we have right here is called a dead-eye strap. The rope would have gone in here, and this would be like a pulley on the ship. So at one point this was all concreted, and what I've been doing is slowly and mechanically removing the concretion off of this using the air scribe, which is a tiny jackhammer really.
Each artifact that we recover, interpret, and eventually fit into the overall puzzle is just one small clue that allows us to tell the entire story of this site and of the people that were on this ship. The end goal is to learn more about the past, to interpret this particular site, and to ensure that future generations have the opportunity to look at it even longer.